Hi, I'm Mark McClain, CEO and founder here at SailPoint. Welcome to the podcast, Identity Matters, where I talk with security experts, business leaders, and generally people who are just humble, hungry, and smart. Today, I'm really pleased to be joined by Bradley Rapier, an Emmy-nominated award-winning choreographer, keynote speaker, and author, and the founder of a thing we're going to talk about called Groove Theory. Bradley, welcome to Identity Matters.
Thank you so much, Mark. Happy to be here.
It's so great to have you. Look, you have such an interesting story, kind of the movement from another country. I won't steal any of the thunder. Tell us a little about yourself and your background for folks who haven't had a chance to learn anything.
Yeah, so I grew up in Canada in a very academic, athletic kind of environment. My father was an established doctor. My mother was a beauty queen. And I was going on that route towards an academic career, a doctor as it were. And then in the middle of nowhere, I saw street dance, culture popping and locking and hip hop, which made no sense. I was in Calgary, Alberta. It would have made more sense if I wanted to be a rodeo clown than to say I wanted to do street dance. Blew my dad's mind, got involved in the dance, started to see how it was showing me sides of me that I needed to learn about who I was. And then as I pursued it, it expanded from performance to choreography. Then there was sort of a point when I had to make a decision to go to the States. I was thankfully in a number of competitions in Canada and in New York and LA where I won these dance competitions and some of these talent shows. And there was agents in New York that sponsored me to get legal in the States. In New York, I got there a little bit, got to LA to be my home base. Felt more at home on the west side. I guess it's similar to being, Calgary's kind of above Montana. Yeah, and got there and started working pretty quickly. But then I noticed that there was this gap. I thought there'd be a big community.
Yeah.
I thought that the street dance community, because I had learned it in Canada, it was a bit more of a magical thing for me that I thought when I got there they'd all hang out, and just kind of chill together, but that wasn't happening. So my wife and I just started inviting people over. I would see people that had this love of the freestyle, that getting down, that authentic expression in the culture, and I'd invite them over. We'd have music and dance and food, and that just started to grow. And we did it for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And that helped to launch a lot of iconic dance groups. We're connected to members of Cirque and Jabberwockies and all sorts of groups. But the main group that I put together there was called the Groovealoos. And in the world of dance, meaning the culture of dance in LA, we were a known entity. We were the group mainly because I was presenting a love of freestyle. So our routines were there to show how Mark does what Mark does, not how Mark just does routines or tricks. And there was this sort of essence that what drew me in the first place, that I was showing the rest of the people. And I did a bit of storytelling, and then I had a lot of fun. When I got there, the dance was kind of really serious. People were kind of whatever. I was wanting to bring some light to that. And so it just kind of took off, and we kind of blew up. That went really well. That launched me into the space of choreography, getting seen to be brought into television, and then eventually to theater and off-Broadway and Broadway.
Oh, wow.
And now I continue to do those things. But what's been wonderful is I taught at the University of Southern California for about 6 years. And when I taught there, I did a lot of lectures and a lot of obviously dance classes as well as an adjunct. And I saw that there was just a limitation to how many people could do this career. So I started saying, how can I help their life? How can I get them to see what I've learned? And I'd learned through the culture of dance just how much I had to find out more who I was, as I mentioned. So I started to take the analogies of the culture, what I call the move and the groove and the circle, to help them to see how to step into difficult situations, how to find out what they have to offer, how to understand their choices they make and how they perceive their nervousness or their anxiousness or their unworthiness they might be thinking of. And it started to really develop into this, what I call Groove Theory. And so now it's just this beautiful thing. I'm new to Austin. My wife and I met in LA, got married there. I met her in an acting class.
Oh, nice.
And but we've been now in Austin for 4 years, and so the transition over to LA, it started in LA, came more full here. One of the things along with my choreography is I now do keynotes and workshops and share this culture and this step in the circle framework through Groove Theory.
Yeah, and we're going to explore that concept a little, because I think we have some visual here. A lot of folks will be listening to a podcast on audio, obviously, but I think you say this in your keynote talk. The thing we can all relate to about this whole dance step in the circle metaphor is a wedding, right? Most of us have always been to a wedding where at some point on the dance floor, some kind of a circle forms, and then people are encouraged, pushed sometimes to get into that circle and participate.
Yeah.
And you've come to use that powerful metaphor of stepping into the circle, kind of getting over your hesitancy and fear. And as you said, those concepts resonate from everything in our personal lives, stepping into critical conversations with our spouses and our kids and our friends and our colleagues, but also in our professional life,
Absolutely.
obviously.
Yeah.
So talk a little about just the concept of stepping into the circle. What is that? How do you take that into this world beyond the dance world?
Absolutely. Yeah. So as you said, I use that great analogy of a wedding, and so that people can recognize that feeling, when all of a sudden the dance circle opens up and then people are asking you to dance with your cousins or whatever, and we all start to get nervous. So it starts there, but really the sort of the framework of the circle, it's a little more involved, but in its simplest form, that as in any company or any group of people, there's a circle that forms. So SailPoint is a large circle, and then there's circles within that, overlapping circles, right? The departments, and then each circle down to the individual. And the goal in the step in the circle framework and Groove Theory is that you learn how to healthily move between the layers, getting to the center. Doesn't mean you're the center of attention, but the idea that you're willing to get out of your shell. And in corporate work, it's very easy to disappear to the sidelines, right? It's very easy to kind of do all your work in your cubicle or on your remote situation, which is important. But then we lose that ability to actually engage, because that is where the magic happens, I believe, still. I know we have technology to do a lot of things. I think AI is very exciting right now. But I believe that we have access to the authentic AI, as I call it, that artistic invention.
Oh, there's a good nice unpacking of AI. Artistic invention. I love that.
Authentic inspiration.
That's
we have access to it beyond machines and any machine. We have to be the leaders in that way. And so to do that comes back to interaction. So the circle framework is a way to check yourself at every layer of the circle and go, okay, why am I afraid to get to the edge? Why am I tentative to step in the middle? What am I feeling? And I go through and discuss, okay, right now, for example, I am falling into comparison. So then I'll address ways that we can perceive that come back from my experiences in the dance circle that now I put on when I've gone to meet with executives, producers, and it's the same thing. That sense of how we either compare, or we fall into a place of repeating ourselves, or we have a fear of rejection, or we have an ego that says I should belong already, but I don't, so now I'm going to dismiss it, or I'm being overlooked, so I'm going to drift off and isolate myself. So I go through all those layers and give people the actual activities, philosophy, movement, definite takeaways, so they can start to readdress how they're perceiving each block they have, so that the circle becomes personal as well as corporate. So you as an individual are going, how am I going to walk in that room right now? I don't know anybody. I got to get in there and connect. I've got a speech prepared, but this isn't working. It's not working. What am I going to do? Am I going to freak out? Or on the corporate side, I got a circle that's not functional because there's a bunch of people not knowing their people.
Yeah, like you say, it's an interesting thing, because there's an individual freedom of expression dance culture there, but there's a group, there's a relationship of all of the players around that circle who are encouraging the person that's currently doing their thing, and there's got to be a confidence in a relationship that you trust those people to not reject you, and sometimes you do have to take that risk that you might be rejected. You talk about that in your talk,
and
right?
I think the great thing is that the circle idea and the groove concept, that the fact that the groove is this larger thing that you're trusting in, is that this, I say you walk down a line, you step in a circle.
Yes.
So I talk about the linear versus the circle. They're both important, right? Because we have to have goals and places we're getting to. But the line can also represent the transactional way of thinking,
right?
Where we're just kind of checking off the boxes.
Next milestone.
Yeah, and we're not stepping into what is around us, into the circle. And once you start to step in that circle, you start to understand, because of its depth, that it's not just an end line. So when you have a linear thought, you're like, I've got to get there, and if I don't get there, I fail. When you're in this relationalness of the circle, well then, as you're nervous, you can pull back and say, it's not all on this.
Yes.
right? You have to go, oh, it's not all in this. This is part of me discovering who I am, what I have to offer, listening, learning how to be more aware. This is not, if this doesn't work right this second, I'm finished. And that's a training, because your mind, our world tells us, right? Prove yourself, show yourself, what do you got? And there is times you have to display, but if you come in as a person, putting that weight on you, then you're going to fall into the transactional, and now you're afraid. And if you come from fear, you're waiting to be blamed. So then you retreat, then you have no creative adaptability, and you're walking on eggs hoping it works. But if you come into the circle and step in with this excitement of the creative and curious journey, then you build awareness, you're looking around the room, you can take a breath, and it becomes a simpler process of a longer journey.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah, another word that's in the vernacular today that occurs to me here is, and this applies in our kind of personal relationships for sure at work. Managers are getting coached on this. It's this idea of being present, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can't be in the circle, certainly in a dance set. You can't be there and not be present. If you're not into what's happening there, like you say, aware of the music, what's happening around you, you can't possibly perform. You can't possibly adapt to what's needed in that moment. You have to be present. And I think we're all learning, like you said, that linear thing as a leader, as a manager, even in the work environment. If you're thinking so much of where you're going next that you're not present with your people right now. I think one of the things we've talked about so much in the last few years is how COVID was like this shocking wake-up call. And if you had been sort of treating your people as like cogs in the machine or just members of the team, numbers in the system, all of a sudden you got this shocking recognition and awareness. Oh, these are people with families and kids and parents, and their life might have taken a really twisty turn right now. And there was like no avoiding it. Yeah. And I think one of the things we're all, still working through in the business community is how do you not lose that sense of being very present with people, understand, like, you're paying them to do a job, right? But there's a sense of they've got to come to work and bring that creativity. There's no job. I like to say, I've never managed kids at a McDonald's making French fries. There's not a lot of creativity there. Right. But most professional work, there's a lot of choice and autonomy and creativity. And you want people to bring their best self. Like you said, you're like, how do you get them to do that? And I love one of your phrases, it's not the move, it's the groove. Talk about what that means for somebody who's looking like, how do I get more comfortable bringing my individual creativity into my unique situation?
Absolutely. The move and the groove aspect is the idea of what way you're perceiving the challenge that faces you. So I would say, that moves are valuable and they're important. They are, but they're not meant to have a lasting impact. So in dance, Running Man, Roger Rabbit, a twist. But in business, in our interactions, moves become the letters behind your name, your zip code, your training. And those are valuable, right? They're important. But they're not meant to last an impact on their own. It's like if I came in, I'm going to walk into a dance circle and go, I just got to do a backflip. And then I do it. Okay, they didn't respond. Oh, what do I do now? Because I put it all on this move. It's like if I walk in professionally and all my thoughts are on this presentation I'm making, these 2 points, I've got to make sure they're here. So I'm leading my conversation with that thought.
That one
move. And the conversation can go a totally different way. I remember I meet different celebrities and different people in the business, and as I walked up just casually, one of my actors that I really like is Jeff Goldblum, and he's awesome. And when I met with him, on an award show, we were just talking, and I, just walked up, saw him, and people were, doing the normal questions, but I knew he loved music, but I was just looking at him, and we just started talking, and next thing we were talking about music and jazz and his love, and it was just because I wasn't locked into, hey, maybe I might be able to do something with Jeff, maybe I might be able to get a connection here. That might happen. So I think when I say moves as what the defining moment, if you try to memorize your moves, right? So your presentation, every bit of your resume, every bit of the tech you have, you will stress. You're going to burn out. You eventually burn out, or you will get paralyzed because the moves you've lined up, if the results aren't the same, you don't know what to do. And if they leave with them, then you're not present. So when you say, I'm going to, in a sense, trust this larger groove, meaning I'm on a grounding that I don't fully understand, but I know it's going to work out. I know there's something there that over time, over practice, we'll get better at. And then as I'm now aware, and now I can pull back and go, oh, what's happening? Receive. And then the moves that you have, your knowledge, your training, will come out because it's there.
Right.
It's going to come out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of like I'm not a student of acting at all, but that whole difference between delivering lines and doing improv,
Yeah.
right? There's times in the business world where we're just going to show up and kind of
Yeah.
do what's expected in that moment. But an awful lot of the time, it's a lot of improv.
Yeah.
Right. And you're doing that improv based on situational awareness, the experiences you have, the knowledge you have, but you're still going to have to react in that moment to what's needed. I love that thought.
When I was at your conference and I was doing a presentation, there are certain parts. So I generally know what I'm saying up there,
Yeah.
but the reactions are always different.
Sure.
So even there's 2 points. Freestyle, the freedom, sometimes is sometimes is that improv state, right?
Sure.
Where you're like walking in and nothing's prepared and you're just ready.
Right.
I make a distinction between freestyle and winging it. So it's not winging it or just faking it till you make it, because that implies I'm just going to say something that's unrelated.
Right.
Freestyle relates to you. I say free for freedom, style relates to you. So it's still connected to something, but now you just letting it go. But when you get in those places, when you actually have a framework that now you are coming from a place, here's my talk, I'm going to say this. But within that, as you know it more,
Yes.
there is freestyle in that.
Yes.
You know, because now you have a baseline to walk on,
Yep.
a foundation. I talk about the balance of foundation and freestyle.
Right.
And now I can play with that, know where to jump up and land back. But I am staying aware, because again, if I had a move mindset, I'm just going to say my lines exactly the same speech every time.
Right.
And that can be dry. It can be totally not connect.
Exactly. It makes me bridge to another thing we've talked about off camera here, which is jazz, right?
Yeah.
And the nature of jazz, unlike orchestral music, is not that you play the score exactly as written, but there's not complete winging it, to use your term.
Yeah.
Right? You're not like showing up, just everybody decides what key they're going to play in, what beat they're going to have.
That would sound pretty bad.
That would sound pretty bad.
Yeah.
But you've got a structure, you've got a key you're operating in, you got a beat, you got some kind of a framework for that. But then within that framework, lots of freedom for expression. In some ways, I've always said jazz is a far better metaphor in some ways than other forms of music when you think about the business world, because there's some structure, but there has to be a lot of improvisation within the structure. And I think jazz is just a classic example of that, right?
What I love about what you're saying that is that with the jazz group, which you said, it's a great analogy, because there is a direction, right? There is, we're doing this song, or there's the band leader, so it starts a certain way. But each of those members, if it's a great jazz band, has the humility to sense when that other person is taking the lead. And so you're not having the drummer battle with the bass player,
Right.
hopefully, right? And you sort of pull back. And I remember, just as an example, one of my favorite bands is The Police. And unfortunately, I mean, it's notorious. I'm not making any new news, but, Stewart, the drummer, and Sting, they used to kind of have battles. On seeing them live, you could see sometimes where they were struggling. And it was a bit like, okay, guys, let somebody take the lead here. Okay, one of you is speeding up, one of you slow down. So the jazz band is beautiful because there's a sense of we're in the same key. We're connected to that same groove. We're headed to that same place, but we're going to allow that expression to go. And that, when that bass player goes, or that executive starts to speak more, then this person here he goes, oh, that's it. I'm getting this now. I'm going to speak. My talk's going to adjust it just a little bit, still be connected, and it's going to light him up, and it's going to raise everything together.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, again, that those both concepts are real. I've used the orchestra analogy sometimes because as a leader, and this is your environment too, as a leader, you are at some level an orchestra conductor because you're deciding what music to play. And I need more of, like you said, more of this section, not that section. That's a bit of a structured thought, but maybe that's true at the macro level of an organization. Hey, we're going to focus on this part of the industry, this kind of product, not that, whatever. But then within that, it starts to become much more like jazz than orchestra because each of those teams is going to take unique approaches to how they solve problems, what they do. So it's like both of those metaphors are powerful. Well, you co-founded the Groove, bringing together dancers from, again, lots of different styles, right? So here we go, mixing metaphors in a lot of ways. But it is really the thought that that's our work environments too. People are coming from all kinds of backgrounds, different experiences, different styles. When you think about what it took for you to kind of take all those individual creative people, their creative backgrounds and training and experience, and kind of groove them into a team. I misuse your word there for a second, but create a team out of that environment. How do you think some of those thoughts apply to a business leader, and again, at various levels of an organization who's thought, I've got all these different people, different backgrounds, I need them to come together and perform as a team? How does that apply, you think?
It's a great example because just in Los Angeles. That's where we created the Grooveloos. Los Angeles is kind of wired. I think this happens with business too in sports, but you're wired to become a lone wolf there.
Yeah.
So it's just because you get a commercial, you get a video, you get an agent, and then you're just kind of going, and you don't even almost notice it. So I was fighting. That was what I had to kind of push back against, because I knew, or I was driven to kind of bring people together, encourage them, activate them, and I found that what made it work was I had a vision. Now, I didn't know everything about it, but I had a vision of what we could do together, what we could say together, what it could mean together, and I would share it. And then I was big on inviting people into different gatherings. Now, of course, we were creating something from scratch, so it's the same way you might, get a guy here that does this. You say, oh, we're kind of vibing together. We have another lunch.
Yes.
It wasn't something I said, well, this many months here. It was I met this person. Okay, cool. Hey, we'll have this. Oh, I like what you're doing. That's cool. We could do this. And I start sharing more. I say, this is what I'm thinking we're going to go. Hey, I got a friend, Joe, that would do that. So it was really, for me, it was organic in that way. It was like a magnet coming in around a purpose and around this fast-talking Canadian kid who had this idea of what we could do together, and there's some shows we could say and some things we could create and choreography we could do that would speak and allow us to share what we had that would inspire others. There was all that kind of thing. So I kept, they go, yeah. And then we'd do a little more, and they go, that was great. And then as that happened, I would recognize, oh, he's a leader. Okay. That person, let me get him over here. Oh, this person, oh, he's got a great directional eye. Yes. Let's get partnered with that. You know what? Take that right over. And and so it was, in a sense, it was beautiful because it's very similar, but in that artistic world, they're very different people, very opinionated. Oh my goodness, and they have to be, because you're doing crazy stuff with your body. They worked hard to get there.
Yes.
But I gave them the direction and the vision. I gave them space.
Yep. I
encouraged them to say, go. Like, you can, quote, make mistakes here. As we say in street dance culture, you turn a mistake into a move.
Oh, nice.
And if you're in that place of that, you realize, I fell. How do I get out of that move? How to get off the ground in a creative way so that now that becomes smooth?
That just became a move.
Yeah, and then that becomes, oh, we like that now.
Oh,
and
wow.
When I say I orchestrate, I pull back and sort of see. I can deal with a lot of chaos. I don't really have a problem with chaos that much. So I can pull back and sort of see how it's working and go, if you took that over there, and if they went with him and you two came together and did that, that would say that really strong.
Yes.
And then also I'm very, sometimes they say to me, Bradley, I think we could do it a different way. And I go, absolutely. So it was really a matter of making space, bringing vision and purpose, no rush, inviting them in, and then letting them know that I would get in first and allow myself to look silly, look wrong. Right. I was willing to share something that they might go, that's dumb. I go, yeah, well, hey, what do you got?
Yeah. Although I can imagine, I'm just thinking, extrapolating here, maybe a little, like as you guys got more notoriety, you had some success, you're on shows, now you've got a commitment for a performance with a deadline. When I was going to, you said a minute ago, I've got all the time. I'm like, well, sometimes in work, you don't have all this time because you got some deadline. So you had to move into different times of ways of thinking. I'm just curious, okay, so you had that open-minded, I'm just trying to see where this goes, and now, oh wow, we've made it. Now they want us to perform it on NBC on this date. Now you got to drive. Tell me what shifted in your thinking when you had to drive toward a performance.
So when we were first taking our show and developing it for an off-Broadway show, I had some favor with some producers in LA.
Yeah.
And they'd known who the Grooveloos were.
Okay.
But they had these certain shows where they would have a lot of different choreographers do a whole night of performance. So 16 different choreographers, 200 dancers. And I had this vision for this show based on true stories and all this stuff. And I said, hey, give me the whole night. And they're like, no. And I kept coming back and finally said, we'll give you an hour. And I said, okay. And then I was thinking they were going to give me the hour 3 months from now. They said 2 weeks. Oh my gosh. It was it's kind of interesting. I think in business it's probably similar.
Yeah, sometimes you tell me,
you tell me this. We actually need deadlines because an 100%. Artist will keep shaping until 10 years from now. Yes. So actually deadlines are very good. The pressure, it's almost like when we first did shows, we'd have like a light bulb and a chair, make a show, and we'd do it.
Wow.
Or, when you step into it, now if you go, oh my gosh, but if you step in and go, okay, we got a light bulb and a chair.
Yes.
okay, what if you did that? And next you know, you're in this place of creativity and adaptability, and just it starts to flow. But now you're stepping into this groove, and that's how it happened. When we had a pressure point, a lot of delegation, and a lot of raising them up. Go, guys, we can do this. We can do this. Okay, can you two go off over there? A lot of separating into sections, and saying, okay, up to the curtain rising, we are still getting
adjusting
together, and we're okay with that. But so it is a matter of rising to the challenge, but rising them to the challenge. Not, I find it doesn't work if I go, come on, guys, we got to get together.
Yes.
It's more like, okay, we got this. This is great. This is great. Pushing, but inspiring at the same time.
I love that.
Yeah.
I have my personal way of thinking of this is I guess it's an inverted or a reverse hourglass. So instead of an hourglass coming in and out, you start in, go out and in. And the way I think of it is that early stage is sort of this brainstorming, widening your thinking, what's possible, and then you have to come toward a conclusion and answer. And to your point, sometimes you have months or years if you're on a non-deadline book project. Sometimes you have a day or a week to say, I got to think about what's possible and I got to narrow in and get it done and deliver it.
Oh my God. Many times we've had, just like you said, Bradley, we need you to put something together to show NBC tomorrow.
Like what?
What? And hey guys, who's in? Okay, whatever, schedule coming over, let's go music, and it just, hey, I like that beat, let's cut this together. And then because we're in it, as a matter of fact, when we did Superstars of Dance, the producers of those type of reality shows, they add pressure to the contestants. They want to disturb your process, right?
See how you react.
They want to get some drama, And so I remember our first performance was coming up on the show, and they had told us we were going to have a whole day in the studio to create, and they told us a song. Well, then we woke up and they said, oh, by the way, we need to go out to Venice Beach and do some stings, like basically go out there and do little promos on the beach. Okay. And we went, okay, and we did that, and that's 3 hours. And they said, oh, we need to come over here and do a little interview. Okay, and next thing was 8 o'clock at night. We were supposed to start at 12 in the studio. 8 o'clock at night, we go to the studio. We start doing stuff. They call me, Brad, the music didn't get cleared. We got to use another track. And so that would happen. And it was incredible. I will admit, sometimes you're just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Come on. But then you just kind of take that breath and go, hey guys, what do we got? Okay, what we're going to do is this. Oh, what does this say? And then it does become, you start to have a trust amongst your workers, your teammates, your colleagues, and the ideas start to come. I love to take ideas from everybody. And then thankfully they'll let me make the choice. But I'll let them come in and go, let's go. Okay, that's the one we're doing. That there, chair, 4 of you, let's go. Okay, let's build. And then you just go for it.
It's funny. My brain goes, you got NASA on your jacket. Remember Apollo 13? We got to get these guys home. This is what we got to work with. That scene is just so powerful in that movie. And of course, it was based on real life. We got a deadline. We got this to work with. We got to come up with an answer. It's very much what you just said. I got this much time. I got this to work with. What are we going to do? I love that. Let's go to the other end of the problem for a moment. Disengagement, I think you've used the term, it's a disabling epidemic. That's a strong term. But this idea that the quiet quitting, we've all seen that kind of terminology in the press and other places. When you think about people just kind of, again, in your metaphor, that'd be stepping out or away from the circle. Why do you think that is so pervasive today? And what can leaders do to kind of get more engagement, to pull people into their respective circles? Yeah,
well, for me, I think the two main things, I think the pandemic did a lot of this. And I saw it, it affected my kids.
Sure.
And then just technology. Technology. Well, and the combination of the two.
The two.
Rising technology on its own, but then when the pandemic came, there was like, well, remote became the thing.
Everything is technology.
And then what happened is, I believe we built a lot of, I think, too much trust in what technology can do. So we can all be remote. All the time. And I love to go to my kind of cocoon and kind of do my mad scientist thing by myself. But I think the reality is that we cannot forget that there is something uniquely special about this. You can't replace it. And I don't mean a Zoom. A Zoom is closer than a phone call, than a email, but this is different. Because we are in a certain environment. We're hearing the people around us, the air. We get in a conversation. The look you give me. They say most communication is nonverbal.
Right.
And again, I as I mentioned, those ideas of authentic inspiration and artistic invention, those type of things that we have access to because we're humans. There's this author of this book named AI, how AI, what's it called? Sorry. The subtitle is How AI is going to Change Everything. It's Mark Beckham. I forget the title. And he was asked the question because he's a proponent of AI,
Right.
but he was saying, what's going to happen, this Terminator idea between man and machines. And he said, well, no, man will win because machines cannot connect to the emotional part of a human. They cannot connect to the soul. Right. And so that's a lot of the why. So as leaders, we have to believe that. Say, we cannot be replaced. Nope. So what are ways I can get engaged with my people? Sometimes it's an activity, sometimes it's an outing, sometimes it's different things you can do, side trips or whatever. Yeah. Sometimes it's role-playing, game playing it with your company. Sometimes it's conferences. Yep. But making sure you're not doing it to do the surface transactional. We did a conference, we did a campfire, but have you spent the time to have the groups that you've made some thought. Okay, during this time, we're going to have these groups together here. We're going to have one guy from the development, one guy from tech that never get together. We're going to have some of the guys that never like to speak up. We're going to ask them to share a bit of their life. Yes. Whatever it is to show that you care for them, that their opinion matters. Mm-hmm. I want to just share one other wild story. I shouldn't say wild, but I remember I was choreographing. There's this very famous Broadway director named Des McAnuff. He did Tommy and Jersey Boys, and I've choreographed a couple shows for him. And I remember when I first came to work for him, actually I was part of the team that brought Jesus Christ Superstar back to Broadway. Oh, wow, nice. Yeah, it was amazing. And when I got there, I was the newbie. Everybody there was Tony Award-winning, set designers, costume designers, all that. And I came in the room, and we sat down. Now we're all hired. We're all there, and we all have this big oval table. And I'm sitting there, and there's the set designer, Tony Award winner, costume designer, lighting designer, all there. And he looks at me and he goes, hey, Bradley, and they had a model of the set. So, Bradley, what do you think about the set? Should anything change in that set? And I was just like,
I'm here to choreograph.
What? And it was great because when he said it, I felt foolish because I was like, that's what I believe, but I froze a little bit. And he said, Bradley, everybody here's got these titles, like the moves. Your titles, maybe you got that title, but now we're in this, he didn't say circle, but we're now sitting at this table. I don't care who has a good idea. I don't care who. I want to hear from all of you. I'll make the decision, but something you might say might influence the set guy. So it's that idea that we want to let our colleagues, our employees, that know that, no, I want to hear from you. I'm going to make the final decision. Or it might be a collaborative decision. Yeah. But I want to hear from you. I want to hear from someone that's not related. Now, obviously, in a business, you can't let everybody talk about everything. But just that spirit of things. 100%. Of when can you do that? Are you doing that?
Yeah, I've kind of talked to our team about that over time, where the higher you are in the organizational structure, director, VP, whatever, senior, the more the mix of your pie chart of focus goes from your specific function, with finance or sales, whatever. The higher up you are, I expect you to be thinking more about the big picture, right? Because yes, you're leading a group of engineers or a group of salespeople, but you need to have the context of what's happening in the whole business. The lower you are in the team, you're mostly executing sales, building product, doing the accounting, do your job really well. And of course, we want you to think bigger, but it's absolutely required for the higher levels of the organization. And as you said, when you get to the senior leadership, which would have been that team for that play, like, I want your brain on everything. Yeah. Because we're going to get the best overall result when we're all contributing. Of course, you're going to say, hey, set designer guy, you probably know the most, but here's a thought. He might go, that's a great thought.
That's exactly right. And then as you said, as you get up higher up, you are going to need to delegate, obviously, right? Of course. But are you connected to those you're delegating to? You don't want to micromanage, because micromanagement is what's that quote? Is just another word for insecurity. Yes. So you do want, you give them their directive, kind of like that book I love. It's older now, but called Scrum. And that you give them space, and you do want to give them that space, but at the same time, you don't want to disengage 100%. From that circle, showing them that you know about their life, you know what's getting them going. So when you come back to them, you have a grounding to stand on. They're not a stranger.
Yes, 100%. Well, I think the other thing we kind of talked about this in time limitations, but there's other forms of constraints. When you think about helping people navigate various kinds of obstacles, could be time, space in your world. Yeah. Hey, we only have a stage this big. Well, we can't do
we got carpet.
Yeah, we got carpet. Yeah, that's a different kind of deal, right? Yeah, probably better for the guy spinning on his head. It feels better. But I think at the end of the day, right, we all live in a world of constraints and all that. When you think about inspiring leaders to kind of navigate around obstacles, constraints, what comes from Groove Theory and stepping into the circle that can be helpful to leaders there?
Yeah, I find the constraints are one of the most creative, inducing things that can happen. again, it's almost like, you can probably have stories of when you were first starting, when you really quote had nothing.
Sure.
And just how you go, okay, all right, well, this is where I'm headed towards this. We have a chair and a light bulb. And I think those exercises are very important to do. Again, have your team strip back down and see what they can do with less. And the idea of constraints, if you have spent time so that they know this constraint is not now you coming to them, if this doesn't work, you're all fired,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because some companies are like that, so
Yes.
then it doesn't work.
That puts pressure, but not good pressure.
Not good pressure. And then next you know, the circle's not functional.
Right.
And you're in the circle waiting to be seen as an imposter and as a leader, and you're afraid to even enter for fear of being shot down by a lightning bolt.
100%.
So the culture of the circle has to be implemented, that from the beginning, no, I'm inviting you in. I will step in first to give you an example. So as we get in those places of constraints, now you're already in that place where, I'm welcoming your thought. I'm welcoming your idea. Again, there'll be some order to it.
Yeah.
Again, I might make the final decision. But seeing how much the limitations triggers that creativity in your mind, because you're going, okay, this microphone, how would this become a sword? And, and it is interesting because there is sometimes, it comes back to that play. This one thing that I share in my book, I have a book coming out next year, and in it I talk about the idea of play and discovery and creativity.
Okay.
This is a cool paradigm. My one friend, he's a speaker as well. His name is Matt Duncan, and he had this thing that he presented of put in a generation in 21 years. It's a longer thing, but basically he said from 0 to 5, we play. From 5 to 10, we discover. And from, 10 to 12 or something, we apply. And then he went through all the way up to generations. In 22 years, a generation happens. But that's what he said. When he said that to me, I went, oh, interesting. Play. Now, as an adult, we've changed that word play to art.
Yeah. Nice.
We've changed the word discover to science. We've changed the word apply to technology. We all can do art. We're all artists.
Yep.
We're all scientists. We're all able to do technology. Now, of course, some people spend many years to be excellent at it, but we all discover. So when you go back to that understanding that we've robbed ourselves because we separated that word from ourselves. Because you think about it, I'm not artistic. That's a musician. That's a dancer. That's a painter. That's a chef. No, all I'm doing is playing.
Yeah.
I'm on stage playing with my body movements. Someone's playing with some paint. Someone's playing with the ingredients. Someone's, It's just play.
Yeah.
And if you can remember that, then it brings back into your company, oh, wait a minute. Now, it feels silly because you feel like, I'm an adult. I don't, but it is just play. Art is just play. Science is just discovery. I can discover a new way to use this water bottle and use this chair and the light bulb.
Yeah.
So if you start bringing that culture and those ideas back to your team, and say, no, you're not removed from okay, it's not like, let's leave the creative thought to Mark and his 5 people. Right. No, you are creative because it's impossible you're not, because you used to play as a kid.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's something, those types of ideas are part of Groove Theory.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. We've talked a lot about the mindset of constraints. The other thing is often people certainly look across a corporate boundary to the competition. Sometimes they look across the cubicle to a guy next to them as a competition. And you talk about how to view others not as competition, but as inspiration to maybe drive that creativity. Talk a little about that.
Yeah. So there's it goes back to almost the linear versus the relational. Obviously, we get markers and we'll go, we see somebody, if we're an athlete, we go, oh my gosh, I want to be like Michael Jordan, or I want to be like something that can inspire us. But, and I'll just say, I remember when I was working on one Broadway show with Tommy Kail. Tommy Kail's the director of Hamilton. I did a couple projects with him, and he did wasn't involved in this project, but he did a play about Magic Johnson and Larry Bird.
Oh, wow.
And he talked about this one time when they in the show, it'd have these 2 courts and they're in 2 different cities, and you see Larry Bird shooting some jump shots, and he goes 755, 756, and then they shoot to Magic Johnson. He goes 755. He goes, I think Larry Bird's doing some more. 756. So that part is real, right?
Yes,
we do get that, but
yeah.
My main issue with when we get locked into that way of thinking is then I try to become Mark McClain.
Yeah.
Right? I'm trying to move like Mark, think like Mark, have the same landmarks as Mark. And so that's where it gets risky. So that idea of you have a great jump shot, or you have a great delivery, or you have great communication skills, that should inspire me to explore, how do I get more communication skills? What would that look like? But not to go like, well, Mark has a pausing way and he's kind of funny and he's charming and this and that. How do I get that?
Yes.
If it starts to become this restrictive mindset because you're
see.
comparing yourself to another person that you can never be because you're not that person. So the comparative process and making a competition, I think is fine for when you're maybe setting some goals. But when you sort of lock onto that person and say, that's my competition, then you will miss out on the inspiration, the awareness, the things that are coming to you uniquely that won't come to that person. There's a famous, I think it's the famous sort of, it might be myth, but that, I remember when I was doing a lot of work for different shoe brands.
Oh.
And for Adidas and Nike and Reebok back then. And, certain brands would be like, how can I be like Nike?
Yes.
Whereas Nike was like, hey, what can I do that they would like? Or same like Steve Jobs. What can I do that they would like or that I think they would like, as opposed to let me just try and be
Try to be Apple.
Yeah, try and be Apple, which is what a wasted amount of time.
100%.
It might bring you success to some level,
Sure.
but it won't allow you to reach everything that you're meant to do.
I love that. We've thrown about a lot of books that have influenced both of us. One of mine that's very in this line, you probably read Strengths Finders, which is sort of that idea of saying, quit. I always take it into the technology world real simply. I say, look, using the Microsoft products for a second, figure out if you're a Word person, an Excel person, or a PowerPoint person. You're not going to be great at all three. Are you a Word guy, a numbers guy, or a pictures guy? And one of those is probably your superpower, right? Same, right? Pictures, kind of words, not numbers. I mean, I'm facile, as they say. I'm decent with numbers, but I don't want to spend my life on a spreadsheet world. That's not my best thing. Well, I love that concept of Strengths Finders because it says lean into what you're great at and what you're not great at. Don't freak out and try to go spend a bunch of time trying to get better at it. Team up with a colleague, a teammate, a friend who's really good at that thing. Absolutely. And that's how you get a great team. You're great at this, I'm great at that. Together we're stronger, we're better. I love that concept. Speaking of, let's segue to a couple last thoughts here. This has been so fun, we could keep talking. Books and music and things. What are some of your go-tos, most favorites or inspirational things that have continued to influence your thinking from music or books or anything like that?
It's kind of simple in a way that I really get inspired by just waking up, going outside. I'm a sun guy.
Oh, nice.
Well, I grew up in Calgary, Alberta, which has supposedly the most sunny days per year of any city in Canada.
Wow.
Okay. It might be freezing. It might be minus 30.
But there's the sun.
And so I've always been, the sun. When I get outside in the sun and the environment and I walk, touch grass.
Yes.
That really just kind of is always a go-to for me.
Okay.
And I ride my bike. I'm a very big,
wow.
I have a bike. I ride all around my neighborhood down the bike paths. I look around, I say hi to people. And then when I'm out of that, I just get around people.
Yep.
People really are a go-to for me.
Yeah.
Just walking up to people, how you doing? Hey, I like your shoes. And next, we're talking about something. It's very easy to do here in Texas. People are so friendly.
Very friendly. Yeah.
And then, I'm saying a number of things, but then music as well. And it mixes. I don't have any specific artist. I play a lot of jazz because my dad played a lot of jazz, but then I'll play all sorts of, I'll play worship music. I'll play funk music. If I'm in a certain mood, I play some music to hit to, and it's kind of a mixture. I would say I'm more of a chameleon that way.
Yes.
But I definitely, minimally, when I wake up, just the idea of life inspires me.
I love that.
Yeah.
You and I are very wired on that one, wired similarly. Last question, I guess. Looking ahead, what's the next circle for you? The next bold step. You've obviously kind of morphed a bit in the last few years, kind of getting into some of what you're doing with keynotes and business consulting. What's sort of your next sense of where you're directionally headed? Yeah.
Well, I never would have thought, a year ago that I'd have a book coming out the next spring. I'm very excited because there's a lot of the principles.
Great.
It's called Step in the Circle.
Step in the Circle.
And so where I'm headed is, initially when I first got here, I was a bit challenged. I was like, what am I doing here in Austin? Meaning I'm not in the LA community. Yes, I'm still doing choreography. I'm still being called for certain things, but it's not around me.
Yeah, I get you.
And then I started to step more into what I'm doing and started to bring this. So I really look to take the initial introduction that I'm giving people of Groove Theory and get into the actual aspects of what Step in the Circle framework training, exercises, activation, and workshops looks like for companies.
Yep.
For C-suite, for managers, really expanding that. And as well as that, for in the future, I'm looking towards having my own, in a sense, Groove conferences.
Oh, nice.
That would not be all about me, but it would have that root behind it, where one main aspect would be that the art behind it, the play behind it, would speak as much as the words.
I see.
So I've worked with so many artists, and I've seen, for example, I've been involved in projects where I've come in and been asked to set a piece of choreography or movement for a theme, and then someone might come and talk after it for about an hour. I'd say, well, you didn't need to necessarily talk that long. You could have talked shorter, because what we just did, if you trust it, said that.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of getting people activated.
Yep.
I love to encourage people and have them understand how they can step in the circle. So I'm looking to build projects. And as long as people, they don't have to think exactly as I do, but they get that idea that there's something they can trust in, build trust in that groove, and they want to share this idea of how to get people into all they're designed to be, encourage them to step in and engage, and then have some great entertainment. So I'm looking to build that coalition, those people, those partnerships. But right now I'm just excited to continue to share other levels of some of the stuff we touched on, the freestyle, the play, how to practice spontaneity, those types of ideas.
Well, I know you'll call me when you need some backup dancers.
Absolutely.
Because you've seen my incredible moves.
I have.
All right. Well, listen, this has been so fun. I really thank Bradley for joining us today. It's been a little different. We didn't go deep into security and identity today, and I bet that was refreshing change for some of you. So we're really happy to have had this time, and we'll look forward to the next edition of Identity Matters. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. That was great.
Thanks, Bradley.